So, here's what I know so far. Klaus is convinced Five and I are dating. Luther honestly fell asleep an hour ago. Allison and Vanya seem to kind of like me, and Diego has just silently glared at me the whole time. I think he's trying to figure out my powers. Other than that, they didn't really explain anything else, and I was totally confused. I didn't have a mother, and if we shared the same dad, where was mine? These alternate universes really need to step up their game. I must speak to this kind woman, Klaus announced, whipping out his pointer finger toward me. Come hither, child. I blinked in confusion. Me? Yes, you, fair maiden. Stop speaking like you live in old England, Five hissed. And no, you cannot speak to her. Since when did you dictate who I spoke to? I snapped at the boy. At least an old English gentleman is better than you. Five opened his mouth and let out a gasp, but I rolled my eyes. He was being so prickly lately, and I had to shut him up somehow. Nodding to Klaus, I ducked beneath the doorway beside me and walked into the other room. Klaus slipped in behind me, sliding over to the corner of the space. I'm listening, I said, crossing my arms. Why did we need to talk? The man shrugged. First off, I'm not an old English gentleman. Sorry, I was just going off of what Five said. I nodded. I'm a queen. I agree with that. I smiled briefly, watching as he flung his feather scarf across his lap and leaned back into a strained-out position. I had definitely not met anyone as eccentric as him. Definitely not at my academy, but I loved it. Second, he said, is it weird hooking up with a 50-year-old and a 14-year-old buddy? What? You know, you and Five. We aren't hooking up, I groaned. I promise you that. But let's just say if you did, the man started. Would it be weird? Klaus? Personally, I don't think it's weird because his body is still young. I honestly don't care, but Five hasn't had a girlfriend his entire life, the man said. So he kinda lacks in the romantic department. Okay, stop, I said, holding out my hands. Who are they? Klaus stopped, blinking his lashes quickly, sinking into his chair. He covered his face in the scarf until I could only see his eyes. I don't know what you mean, he squealed out. Who are they? I clarified. The person you are in love with. When I said the word love, Klaus shuddered. I didn't mean to put him on the spot like that, but I just had to. He was bugging me about Five, which wasn't even a thing, and I had to stop him in some way. How did you know I loved someone? He muttered. I never told you. You didn't have to. Then how do you know? Because when someone has their heart broken, they do everything they can to forget the pain, I explained. And that usually means asking about others, about their love lives, just to live their feelings through them. I could read him like a book, pointing out the feelings he hid underneath, the ones he would bravely show, and sadly I could see how much hurt he was feeling. Klaus nodded, staring at the ground. His name was Dave. I'm sorry that he hurt you. We hurt each other, he said, but that makes it hurt more. You don't have to talk to me about it if that makes you more comfortable. Yeah, he said. I've spoken enough about it. And like the flip of a switch, the brief moment of vulnerability in Klaus's eyes disappeared, and he resumed his bubbly personality. There was barely any trace of our earlier conversation. As he passed me by, he patted my shoulder, a smile on his face. I still think you and Five are a thing, he whispered. Rolling my eyes, I followed him into the other room, welcomed by a glaring 5. He couldn't hear our previous conversation, thank gosh, but he was still peeved by the pure idea of any conversation happening. I swear I saw his left eye twitch. "So, why did you take me to the department store?" I sighed, hitting my back slightly against the wall and hoping to change the conversation. 5, who somehow managed to whip up a coffee out of thin air, turned to look at me when he heard me speak. "Our mom used to work there," he said. I was trying to see if she still did. "No luck, I guess." Diego sighed. Luther was still asleep. Allison and Vanya didn't look interested anymore. Klaus was now dancing around the room with a feather scarf, occasionally throwing it back in the mirror. "So, that leaves us with one option," 5 explained. "You need to ask your dad what happened to her." "Why?" "I believe our mom was the reason for the change in the timeline," he said. "After she found out about the Kennedy assassination, she left Dad. Because of that, he most likely vowed not to choose the same disappointments and picked the other 6 of you Sparrows." "We don't have a mom," I said. "We have Pogo." "We did too." Well, at least they didn't have to deal with a jerk like Ben. Anyways, comparison between our worlds were beside the point. We both had the same dad, and he seemed to be exactly the same no matter when, where, or how. And that meant I did not want to talk to him. "I doubt he'll want to talk about her," I frowned. Is there any other way?" "It's the easiest way. He'll kill me if he finds out I'm helping you guys. And just so you know, I would very much like to live." "He's not going to kill you." I was exaggerating. I corrected. "Do you understand how that works?" 5 didn't answer, as if he was struggling to come up with an answer. I guess that was my cue to leave. Spinning on my heels, I began to walk to the door, flinging out a farewell to the rest of the family. At least they weren't egotistical jerks. As I strode down the hallway, I realized I didn't hear the door close behind me. Raising an eyebrow, I began to spin around, but was stopped by someone grabbing my wrist. It was the egotistical jerk. "Try not to get caught," he said. "Working with us, I mean." I narrowed my eyes. "Yeah, sure, whatever." I began to turn away, but he stopped me again. "One more thing." "What?" "I guess I should apologize." "For what?" "Accidentally entering your room at the wrong time." I wrinkled my nose, surprised that he was actually showing a little compassion in that tiny little body of his. I tilted my head in interest. "All right," I agreed. "Go ahead." 5 raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "You said you wanted to apologize, so apologize." That kind of was my apology. And there went my surprise. Maybe his attempt to say sorry was definitely an improvement, but it still wasn't anything kind. I just had to get this mission over with, and then he'd be out of my hair. Whatever, fine. I sighed. Just knock next time.
We are explorers, it's a different kind of love. And everyone is looking like we crazy people just escape from alone. I'm a big, big girl in a big,
Thank you for listening.
world. It's
I appreciate it.
big,
Please stay tuned for the next video I post.
we keep this love in a photograph. We made these memories for ourselves. Would it be